So I built this Turo 450 Pro V2 off of CPO's videos, and I promised him that I was going to do a video of my wiring because I did I think a pretty clean installation, and I did it for with maintenance in mind, knowing that there's a good chance I was going to crash it. And so I had promised CPO that I'd do a video on it, and hadn't had an opportunity once it was together. They really didn't make sense, or it wasn't very easy to do a video of it. So now I crashed it pretty good a couple weeks ago, and I got all the parts in to do the repair on it, and so I figured now was a good time to take a video. You can see if you look here, I got half a tail blade on it. The gears are stripped out. The tail gear's stripped out at the back. The main transmission gear is stripped out up here. The main gear has teeth missing. It's stripped. I bent the feathering shaft, broke both blades. They were broken, and I have 3 stripped servos. Or 2 stripped servos. This one's stripped, and this back servo is stripped too, or well, it's at least notchy, so I think it's stripped. This one looks good, but I'm also going to take it apart as well and check it. So I got all the parts in to repair it this week. I also broke the landing skid in it, and I've already replaced that. So I've got all the parts now to do the repair in it, and so I figured I would take it apart here on video and kind of show you how I did the wiring. I'm going to try and show you. I replaced this main block here with the one that can come apart, and so these pieces here can come off, and you can take these 2 servos without it, without having to remove anything else, which is kind of nice. And if you look here, what I did is the wiring here for these 2 front servos kind of goes over the top of this, and then runs down this right side here, runs by the arms, and runs down the right side here around the block, and then it runs underneath the mount here where I've got my flybarless controller stuck. So those 2 kind of just run here, they run around here, and then come right out the back. The center servo on this side right here simply just runs over the top and does the same thing, runs here and runs underneath. So if I pull this tray off, those wires are pretty well exposed right to those servos. So I can pull any 3 of these servos real easily and replace them with almost nothing, with almost no work. The tail servos right here, and I did change to the aluminum tail transmission, which I think gives a little bit more room than the plastic one. I'm really not quite sure because I never used the plastic tail transmission that came with it. But you can see if you look in here, I hope you can see it. It'll probably be able to be seen better when I pull this off. Some of the wires are running right inside of here, which there's space between the plug here that goes into the frame and the bolt pattern, the solid block on the back here that is the block. So there's space to run by here. The wires from the receiver I run up here. The receiver and the ESC and all that stuff, that all runs up that side. And then the tail servo simply runs up here slightly forward of that, forward of this, and comes up and again goes around and just plugs in. So I've had to change this tail transmission gear a couple of times now because I struck the tail, and I was able to replace it in 10 minutes or so pretty easily, just by pulling this off the top, pulling the flybarless gyro plate off, and then I can just unbolt this and slide it out pretty easily, and the wires have enough room that I can slide them out and slide it back in without having to displace anything. So all that wiring is pretty easily done. The worst situation for replacing anything would be the receiver, which I have down in here in the bottom, but it's actually fairly easy to reach as well. I just take off the bottom I don't know what you'd call this, the bottom of the frame, this metal piece here. You can just unbolt that and pull that off, and then you have access to the receiver right here. It's right underneath it. When you do that, I do have to take off these zip ties right here, which these are the wires that are running from the ESC and from the BEC and the throttle controller and stuff like that. So I run those around here to clear the motor. So I do need a little extra room. I have to cut those off when I pull that off to access the receiver underneath there. The other thing that's in there is right up in here is the I'm using a Robird G31, and it has I think it's called an SRX adapter, and the SRX adapter is sitting right in this area right in here to that carbon fiber plate that's right in there. It's zip tied to that. So that's in there. The other thing wiring wise on this one is I'm using a Tyrannus receiver, and so I also have a telemetry module to monitor my battery voltage, and it sits out here on the outside of the frame. It's really the only thing I have mounted on the outside of the frame, and the wire runs right in here and runs past and goes around, and that gets in from there. Actually, it runs over here and it plugs into the back of the receiver and the receiver, and that transmits it out from there. So that's the only thing that's really outside of the frame. My antennas, I got one here on the bottom sticking out this way, and I got one on the side sticking up this way. That's how I've got my my antennas wired. So as you can see, if you look at it, it's really clean. Everything is inside the frame, yet it's really easy to access, which I think you'll see better in a minute. The other thing is up underneath inside of here, underneath the battery tray, is both my ESC, and I'm running an external BEC. I'm running it's Castle Creations BEC that I'm running underneath here, and that just sits underneath the plate here. So let's I'll start with pulling this plate off here and show you the wiring on the back side here. So I can just take off these two screws right here on the it's actually the centering plate for the rearmost servo, and hopefully not drop the screws. The other thing I did as I'm taking this apart is I did on all the servos and stuff and all the wiring, I trimmed the length of them to make them just the right length, which gives you a lot more room, especially on a 450 size helicopter. I imagine on the bigger ones it's not as big of an issue, but on the 450 it's definitely tight. When I first started building, I thought it was a huge helicopter compared to what I was flying, a Wakara Mini CP. And then as I started doing the wiring, I realized there isn't nearly as much room here as I thought there was. So you can see here, now that I've pulled this out of the way, I've got my wiring here exposed for my servos. And the other thing I did here is this shielding that I've got over the wire is just paracord. I just took paracord and pulled out the nylon out of the inside, and then I heated the end so that it didn't strip, and I did a little heat shrink tubing right at the tail end of it down here to finish it off. I like it. It looks really nice, and I think it protects the wires pretty good. So you can see here, here's the wiring that goes to the center servo, and here's the wiring that goes to the front two servos, and it just goes by. So I can pull those servos out, and I'm just going to remove them here, and you'll see how easily I can access these servos should I need to replace them or service them without having to pull anything else off. this ball link off, which is why I left it on there until it was out and accessible. Come on. There we go. So there's the tail servo, and I want to make sure I actually had not labeled these. So I'm going to go grab something to label them real quick. Okay, so this one here is my center. I'll put it here on this side where it can't be seen. This is my center. And then these two are more easily accessible, so I can get in here. Take the links off. And I will show too later how I did the shortening of the wires. I got a crimp tool and stuff, so I'll pull that crimp tool out and show you guys how I did that. So now these two servos here can be pulled out. And basically it's 5 screws. One in here. And now this will just pull out. Up, pull it out, and plug the wrong one. And again, if you look here, you can see now. So these were sitting like this, with the wires going over the top and then running down the right side here. And here's the wires, so I can just slip them right out and pull them out. And there's my my center and my left and my right. This is the really badly stripped one here, and this one feels okay. I'm gonna probably take it apart and take a look at it. Still feels all right. This one here felt really notchy when it was in the helicopter, and it's making kind of a noise right in there. So I'm definitely taking this one apart and taking a look at it and see what's there. But so that pulls the servos out. So there's the servos, and as you can see, I really didn't have to disassemble hardly anything. And now you can see in here a little better now. So this is the tail servo here that's connected, and that's where that runs. You can see it runs right up here, and runs right up by the front of the tail, the transmission. There wasn't quite enough room back here to run it back here, which is why I ran it in the front, but it stays out of the way, no problem. And then the rest of the receiver wires are right here, and they run down by the side of this tail transmission. So to pull the tail, we'll do that now so that you can see that. I just have to pull the struts here. And with this metal tail transmission, actually, if I wasn't replacing the main gear, I can actually do this without. I can replace this front gear without even removing it all the way. I'll show you that. So right here, there's this bolt right here, and if I pull that bolt off, that top bearing comes off, and you can pull this back just a little bit and pull that and get access to that main gear on the front, the pinion gear on the front, and replace the pinion gear. Just pull it out and you're all set. So you don't even have to remove this all the way. But if I want to remove it all the way, all I got to do is pull these wires down out of the way now, and out she comes. So there's the tail. The tail's pulled off. Now I have full access to replace the gears. Do all the, I got to replace the gears back here. I got to replace the gears up here. Those are the stripped out ones. So that's the tail. And then I'm left with this. And in here now you can see here's all my receiver wires, my receiver, my second power that comes up to the SRX2 port to power the tail servo, because there's actually a separate power for the tail servo on the G31. And then this is my throttle control. I got my receiver. This is my throttle control from my BEC, or from my ESC. This is my receiver coming in, and this is my rudder control. So I got everything right there, all set. And now now I've got access to the main gear, and I've got access to everything left on there. So I think you can see it's pretty clean wiring, easy to maintain, easy to replace a single component, yet it still looks clean. But the big key to that, in my opinion, is cutting these wires to length, getting them to the right length. So I actually have now, I purchased 3 extra spare servos and gears for all of them. So I'm actually going to, for my second set of servos, is I'm going to trim these wires to the length. You can see these two, the left and the right are the same length, and the center one's a little bit shorter. So I'll have those new ones as spares. I'll cut them to the same length, and then I'll replace the gears in these. I've got spare gears for these. These are KST 215 MG, DS 215 MG servos. So I'll replace these, and I'll have a spare set sitting on the shelf for whenever I need them. So that's my wiring, and later I'll show after I get all these servos fixed and I get all the other stuff fixed on the helicopter, I'll come back and show you the reassembly real quick.